It's always better to plan when things are good and sunny outside, but you're typically the timeline that goes into a lot, because the shorter you have, the last minute you got to sell, then mistakes can be had. You limit your options.
The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. So it doesn't really matter how much planning you've done or not. The point is, you want to be doing planning. You need to be doing planning.
It is right now a seller's market. There's a lot of buyers. Jeff said that he's not seen this many buyers of businesses in the over 20 years that he's been doing this. And so that means even though you might not have considered exiting, you might. Hey everyone, Steve Burton here at Scale to Sell, your co-host for today's episode 49. We got our friend back of the show, our teammate, Jeff Snell, is back with us, M&A expert. And today's topic is talking about these deal-killing mistakes that people make, sellers that they commonly make that only results in, I think the stats have said and are still holding current, only about 30% of all businesses successfully sell. You might sell your business, but not get out of it what you want. So there's a lot of things that go into this. So Jeff Snell's with Inline Advisors, been in the industry for over 20 years, M&A on the M&A side. He helps you acquire a business or sell the business. But welcome back, Jeff.
Thank you, Steve. Good to be here.
So last time we talked about some changes to the SBA, small business administration loans. And so we updated. And if you didn't catch that, you can go back and watch episode 48. And I think that might be enlightening to you because, as you mentioned last time, Jeff, as I remember, the majority of the businesses that sell in this country, small businesses, go through SBA loans. So knowing the process there helps out a lot. But today we wanted to focus on the common mistakes, things that trip people up and leads to that business either not selling or not selling it to what they thought they would get out of it. But just a little bit about, those thoughts right there about, what are some of the most common mistakes you see, Jeff, when sellers, sometimes I know it's, they think the business is worth more than it actually is. And so unrealized or unrealistic expectations. But what do you see there on your side from some common mistakes?
Yeah, well, that's certainly one of them. So let's jump in and kind of slay the 800-pound gorilla, which is thinking you can do it by yourself. There's some cliches that come to mind. If you need brain surgery, you don't do it on yourself. Trying to sell a business is much more complicated than the vast majority of business owners think. They think, well, nobody knows the business better than I do. And they're right. Nobody does know the business better than they do. But they don't know how to navigate the process. They don't know what's expected by buyers and lenders and the SBA when it comes to due diligence, financial preparation, positioning, branding, strategy. Obviously, I come from an admittedly biased position. I've been doing this for 20 years. It's how I put my 4 kids through school. It's how I, bought my house and my cars. So I'll admit that bias. But I genuinely believe that a broker or an intermediary, an M&A advisor, whatever you want to call this industry, creates more value than they cost. If they didn't, the industry wouldn't exist. And when you say only 30% sell, that's of all businesses that attempt to go to market. If you focus on those that are represented by a professional intermediary, somewhere between 70 and 80% sell. There's no hard statistics because we don't have a reporting mechanism. But that's been my firm's experience, is that it's in that 70, 80%. And that's because we probably admittedly take some listings that we shouldn't because they're referrals or whatnot. We do our best, but they wouldn't have been sellable anyway. We have no upfront fees, so it doesn't hurt the seller to work with an intermediary. So that would be number one. So getting down into number 2, 3, 4, whatever, quality financials, unreported cash, don't do it. The real quick and a 30-second explanation. If you have $1 of retail sales that you put in your pocket and you don't put on your tax return, you save what? Better than I do, 23 cents in taxes on your effective tax rate. Well, that's $1 that's not being multiplied times your multiple of, if it's a small business, 2.5 to 3 times, or a large business, 4 times to 6 times. It's just foolish. It's greedy. And when a seller says, well, by the way, I've got $60,000 of cash and I can show you that in my personal checking account, it doesn't matter. The lender is not going to take it. The SBA is not going to take it. And at the end of the day, what I tell my clients is you can't steal it twice.
Another one I think would be trying to, well, I mean, there's so many things I could go off on right here. We said the last time it's a seller's market right now because there's so many buyers looking to acquire these businesses. And so you might have a buyer, but it may not be the best buyer because you've got a narrow world and you're not out there marketing the business properly. So you've got that as a mistake. You got timing. We spoke about that recently. All of a sudden you wake up one day, you're burnt out or you have some health issues and think that you could put the business, somewhere, market it somewhere and sell it within a few weeks or a month or so. The process normally takes. So a little bit about timing, Jeff.
Yeah, well, you mentioned 3 very important things. So first, on the ideal buyer, every seller is different. Some sellers want to maximize total transaction value, which means they might have 30 or 40% contingent payments because they want to push that income out into future periods for tax purposes. Some sellers want to, at true retirement especially, want to focus on cash at closing. Some sellers want to focus on a buyer that aligns with their corporate values and their employees and their clients and sometimes even their vendors. So working with an advisor that understands and asks the right questions to understand your goals to affect that outcome, I think is very important.
To get top dollar, no doubt about it, because it's not, with some people, it's just all about the money, the top dollar, get the most out of it and on to the next chapter. But we do have, our employees, I've got employees that have been with me for a long time and they are like family and you want to take care of them, and others feel differently about that. And so anyway, I was talking to somebody recently as a sidebar, one of our teammates that we work with, and he brought me an owner and she's going to do an internal sale to her son. And that brings up, a whole different things. My viewpoint on that is that if you become the bank spreads the risk out over a large group of loans. If you become the banker and something happens right there, you may not get everything out of it. It could fracture a relationship. So selling it to a family member, that really wasn't on point right here. But I would say a lot of us would like to, I think it's about 30% of the time to hand it off to the next generation. But what mistakes do you see in selling a business to a family member, Jeff?
You've already touched on a couple of them, but the major one in my view and experience is that family members, generally children, don't have the liquidity to provide. They're not going to qualify for a commercial loan. They're not going to qualify for an SBA guarantee. So the parents have to step in and, as you said, be the bank. Well, that's problematic because they don't have the skills and experience in most cases that the founders do or the parents do, even if they acquired it. And it's exacerbated when there's commercial property involved. Because if your son or daughter or son-in-law, daughter-in-law, whatever combination it is, default on the business loan, they're going to default on the commercial property loan. And then where's your post-transaction liquidity? It's gone. So I love the idea of businesses going generation to generation to generation. But if you look at the statistics, regardless of what the structure was, second generation businesses at a shockingly high percentage. Third generation, even higher. And fourth generation is in single digits. We've talked about this before. The most prudent, I think, financial planning, not only for the parents, but for the children or the in-laws, is let us sell the business and then we'll set you up in a business, or we'll set up a commercial property portfolio for you, whatever is better, because my kids are probably not going to come into my business. It just statistically is not likely. So look at capital as a tool. Don't look at the business as the only asset class that you can pass to them. Because if you can work with an intermediary and a financial planner and a tax planner, you will have plenty of cash to set them up in something that is as ideal as possible for their future.
It's the easier route to go, but there are ways to get financing in some cases harder. Especially, I mean, if you got a kid, we've had this conversation about kids coming out of college, the parents ready to retire, they have no way of getting financing, but there are ways on down the road if the kid has been around for a little bit. Anyway, so that's a good point right there. So what can we do? I would say you want to work with the best. You want to work with somebody that's been there, done that. Somebody like yourself, Jeff, a good M&A expert. And there's some good ones and there's some not good ones. And same thing with business brokers. But, I would think it would start with somebody that's an advisor. It's kind of like you mentioned before about doing brain surgery. I don't know if I'd want to have work on myself right there or not. But same thing with trying to sell your business. You might be able to pull it off, but the odds are probably against you. But what is the best way to get prepared to avoid some of these mistakes that we're talking about?
Well, I think in episode 48, you mentioned something, build a deal team. It doesn't have to be me. I know you're collaborative. It doesn't have to be you. You'd feel the same way, but don't go it alone. Just don't do it. If as you said, you might be able to, I like your phrase, pull it off. There could be a sale, but the odds of it being at the highest market value in the shortest amount of time with complete confidentiality, which is a trademark phrase of my firm, is very low.
I would say, you're right. Having a team, an M&A expert, somebody that knows how to market your business to get the top dollar for the business, a financial advisor to make sure your personal finances and your business finances line up, a tax planning team. Most CPAs are not that. We've talked about that before. Talking about mitigating large capital gains, sometimes hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions of dollars. You want to have a team out there because instead of writing a check to Uncle Sam, you'd like to reduce those taxes down as low as you can. You need the attorneys. You have the M&A attorneys. You might need a trust attorney. We have all those people on our team to make sure that you can position the business to sell, make sure you get top dollar for it, and there's no surprises, or we greatly reduce the chances for surprises down the road. Anyway, if we've talked about this before, if somebody's trying to wait to the last second, and that's what happens a lot. You wait to a life-altering event, a disagreement with a partner, health issues going on, burnout sets in, came in out of the blue. You were ready to work forever a week ago, and now you're just ready to get the heck out of the Dodge and give it up.
Or you lose a key employee, you lose a key client, you have unexpected divorce. Yep. There are all kinds of issues.
So in planning purposes, it's always better to plan when things are good and sunny outside, but you're typically the timeline that goes into a lot, because the shorter you have, the last minute you got to sell, then mistakes can be had. You limit your options. But typically, what is a timeline for somebody's thinking about, hey, I'm thinking about retiring in a couple years' time. When's the best time to start having these conversations, Jeff?
One of my favorite sayings is, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. So it doesn't really matter how much planning you've done or not. The point is you want to be doing planning. You need to be doing planning. It doesn't have to be a full-time job, especially if you have a team. They're doing it for you. And, at the end of episode 48, I was thinking, as you were wrapping up, engaging with your team or engaging with mine or your tax planners, initially, there's no obligation. There's no financial cost. For my arm of this team, there's no financial cost until and unless you actually sell. So you have nothing to lose financially by building this skilled team that, we should probably do the math, has hundreds and hundreds of years of experience, business experience, to make sure that when you decide, or when fate decides, it's time for you to exit, that you're the best positioned to maximize that value.
I was 100% right. And knowing the value, we talk about knowing the value, growing the value, protecting the value. So if you're going to retire in 2 or 3 years or 5, you need to start the conversation on an annualized basis. One, you start with the valuation. What is your value of your business today? And then if I maintain that value in 2 or 3 years, will I be able to harvest enough equity out of it to commingle with my personal assets and sell off into the sunset? If not, what do I need to do to increase the value? Right. So you got to know the value and then grow the value. You always want to be growing and improve the bottom line. I would say on an annualized basis. So even if it's 20 years away, like your example with the tree, I'd say you want to know. I think it's a process you should go through on an annualized basis, at least every couple years if you got a ways to go, but at least probably most importantly on an annualized basis. But we get out there so heavy in the grind, Jeff. We're so out there, working in the business and just keeping the payroll, keeping our employees, get their checks flowing, keeping our clients happy, and making sure everything is falling in line. We spend so much time working inside the business, we can't step back and look at the business from an outside looking in type standpoint. But anyway, any final thoughts here as we, avoid these mistakes? I think the simple thing you do, I'll tell you one step you can take here in just a moment. But Jeff, any final thoughts as we're wrapping up episode 49 here?
One more topic or talking point that I think is important to sellers. Not unlike the stock market, trying to time it is very difficult. Be prepared always. And what I want to add is consider macroeconomic risk. So most of us remember 9/11. We remember subprime. We remember COVID. Completely out of our control. It impacted financial markets. It impacted, in most industries, gross sales, net profits, employment. Sometimes taking money off the table in the form of exiting your business and putting it into a more diversified portfolio, whether that be stocks, bonds, equities, commercial property, really taking money off the table, as people like to say, and redistributing it with the professional advice of firms like Equity One and Scale to Sell Planning. These things can make life-changing differences in your retirement. So that's one thing I would add.
And right now, we said earlier in the show, if you remember, it is right now a seller's market. There's a lot of buyers. Jeff said that he's not seen this many buyers of businesses in the over 20 years that he's been doing this. And so that means even though you might not have considered exiting, you might, and it doesn't have to be 100% exit. I've known some people that sold the majority of their business, retained a fraction of the business, cashed out, took some profit off the line, mitigated the taxes, and then they hope that for remaining 20, 30% or so in the future, because these companies coming in, pouring money into the business, that the smaller percentage could be worth many times over what the larger percentage is, but you diversify a bit. Guys, we appreciate you, Jeff, being here today. Guys, we have a team at Scale to Sell. M&A advisors like Jeff Snell. We have the tax planning team to mitigate taxes. Both think about that. If you get together with us now and our tax planning team were to save you some taxes, it goes right to the bottom line and improves your bottom line, and it can improve the multiple when you go to sell. And when you do sell, the tax planning team sitting there to help mitigate and reduce what Uncle Sam gets. And we got the attorneys and all that. I would encourage a discovery call. Check us out at scaletosell.com/discovery. I would say a step, and you can check all that in the show notes as well. I would also tell you, get your value. We can do your valuation for you. Jeff can do it, but we also have a software program that would do it. Know your value on an annualized basis, whether you're selling in 10 years, 20 years. Don't anticipate selling it, but or you do have a game plan. If you're a baby boomer, I would anticipate over the next 5 or 10 years, you're going to be out of your business one way or the other. Jeff, I appreciate you being on here today. We'll get you back in the future. Check out episode 48 to talk about when we talked about the SBA loans. I think that's very important, and I hope you got something out of this too. Again, go to scaletosell.com. Jeff, we'll see you next time. Appreciate it.